Hey, this is Mark Spess, and this is a tutorial on how to use surface gauges for stop motion. And we have here a surface gauge, which is really simple. All it is a dowel rod made from wood. You can stick a pencil also in a piece of clay and take some wire. This is 1/16 inch gauge aluminum wire. But you can use, any kind of wire you like, but aluminum works really well because it's flexible and doesn't break too easily. If you use like steel wire, it might break kind of quick. So aluminum wire is great. We have also an armature ball and socket made from brass. We also have a pair of calipers, which I'll explain how to use later on, and a pencil, and just a plain wooden dowel. And this is going to be used also for as a surface gauge. Alright, so for this, the first thing we want to do is we want to determine which direction we want our puppet's arm to move. And, we're going to just be really doing a simple job on this here. We're not going to be doing anything really intricate where we're moving the entire puppet. But right now what we're going to do is focus on just this arm moving down, like this. Very simple. And the first thing you want to do is you want to take the tip of your gauge, or your wire, and stick it on the tip of your puppet's part, for example this arm. And for timing, you want to figure out, well, if you're going to animate something at 24 frames per second, you want to determine how fast the part moves. And you want to do that by, let's say you want this arm to move down within half a second. That would be 12 moves from here to here. You can use your calipers, like I showed you before, and you can figure out the distance by measuring it and literally dividing that by 12. So if we have, 12/16 of an inch, that would be 6/8, 3/4 of an inch, let's say. You'd have to divide that up into 1/16 inch increments for your move. Now there's a lot more involved in that. The first thing I want to discuss is once your pose is set, your first pose like this, you wouldn't have your gauge in there. You'd remove it and you would take a picture. So that would be the first frame of film. And then let's say you're using Stop Motion Pro or some other software, and you would have already clicked off a frame using maybe your web camera or your DSLR or whatever you're using. Or even film. If you're using film, some people still like to use Bolexes and whatnot. So you click off your frame of film. You want to do what they call easing in, which is to move your part just ever so slightly downward from the tip of the gauge. And you want to do that in the direction that your arm is going to move in. So you just want to move it down just a little bit. Alright, remove the gauge. That's your ease in. And what that does is anything that's starting in a position like this that you're moving down, it takes time to speed up, from that position to get to the next position. Nothing just moves instantly. It's going to be gradual. And so the middle part of your arc would have the widest gap, and the end, when you ease out, would have the least. In other words, when we put the gauge here like this and we eased in just a slight bit, the final move is going to be easing out, which is going to be a slight bit also. So that's the general idea. But the gauge is used in space, so you can see exactly how far your puppet's moved. So for example, when we first eased in, like this, we remove the gauge, snap frame number 2. So you took one, moved it, took another frame, put your gauge back in like this, and you can stick your gauge right back there on the tip of the finger. And you don't want the move to be a slight move. You want it to be a little bit more than before, because you're slowing in or easing in, and this move would be slightly more. So you'd move it maybe like that much. And you want to do that, you want to divide it into the 12 frames for half a second. Now, you can use a gauge like this, or calipers, and if you want to equally space something, if you equally space something across a line, it would move at an equal rate of speed, okay? So it's kind of like this. It would look like this. All right. So, you could divide it down. Let's say you want to move this, let's say we're going to move this arm in, 3/8 inch increments. We could stick our gauge on the tip of the finger, like this. Take our calipers. Let me get this in focus. All right, take our calipers and close them to be, let's say, 3/8. And then you can put that alongside your gauge, like this, and literally move that hand the distance of the caliper's gap. Alright, so then you remove everything. Take another frame of film. Let's say that's the third move, and then now it's going to be all equal spacing. So put your gauge back in after you take that frame of film, like this. Take your calipers, stick them here like this. Move that hand exactly the same distance that you moved it before. And repeat the process, and you'll get a very even motion. It won't be very realistic unless it's like a ball rolling down a hill or something. But anything, like I say, that's speeding up and speeding down, unless it's mechanical or something, you want to make sure if it's like a living being, the way it's going to naturally move is to slowly move into a move and then slowly move out. Alright, so that's the basics. You can also use, as I said before, we have a dowel rod here, and on this dowel you can see I have a pencil mark about maybe 1/4 of an inch. And you can do the same thing. Instead of using calipers like this, you can just use the little tick mark on your pencil, or dowel rod, or whatever piece of wood you have that you can draw a line on, and then you stick it there, and then you can move your part the exact distance of where you made that mark, and that'll give you equal spacing. So those are some tips on using a surface gauge.